As we reflect on in the first month of 2013 and look back, we can see that the first decade of the 20th century has been a time of great confusion, chaos, and peril for our country and the world. On 9/11, our sense of safety was shattered, and fear has stalked our land ever since. In 2007, an economic collapse began that shook the idea of the American dream to its very roots. And starting with the 2000 election and ending now with the possibility of a government-induced default of our country's obligations, our political system has degenerated into dysfunction in a way unimaginable a decade ago. And there's also been a historic and complete shift in the religious life of the nation. I've been doing this work for 33 years, and I have to tell you that the religious scene in this country has changed so much that I'm finding now I have to re-examine every single assumption that I've held about how to do ministry. There are some things you might not know because this change has been so rapid. Christians now make up a declining percentage of the American population. Those who are self-identified as Christians have gone down 10 percentage points since 1990, from 86 to 76% of the population. And this is especially true for the generation that is just now coming of age, people in their late teens and 20s. And for them, this is the first generation where most of them were not raised with organized religion in their lives, for whom church or synagogue or mosque is foreign territory, a thoroughly secular generation. And for most people of that generation, the very idea of organized religion has a negative brand identity, to use marketing terms. Think of church, and people in that generation and older think of bigotry, rigidity, dogmatism, and homophobia. So how did this happen? You know, even Southern Baptists are losing members. Every major religious denomination in this country are losing members rapidly, including the evangelicals, including megachurches. The only exception is the Catholic Church, and the reason that they are not is because of immigration, and solely because of immigration. Sociologists of religion are now talking about the end of church as we know it in a generation. And there are many, many people in this country who wonder whether that's bad news. So let's consider that today. What happened? Religious sociologist Diana Butler Bass, in her wonderful book, Christianity After Religion, identified 5 major shifts in the first decade of the 20th century. The first, of course, was the 9/11 terrorist attacks perpetrated by religious fanatics. During the Sundays, right, and Fridays and Saturdays, right after those attacks, all the pews in churches and synagogues and mosques across the land were filled with people who were afraid and confused and wanting some kind of answer, some kind of perspective, some kind of solace. And what they got was an insider culture, a culture that they didn't understand, that did not address their deep fear and confusion. And those numbers disappeared within 6 weeks. And then we saw the religious right come up with some Islamophobic hatred. And we saw people like Pat Robertson and Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell very loudly on television proclaiming that those attacks happened because this country was too tolerant of feminism and homosexuality. And it left a bad taste in people's mouths. And let's not forget the second reason. The Roman Catholic sex abuse scandal that erupted in the headlines, where the moral corruption of the Catholic hierarchy all over the world was exposed for its hideous immorality, where the insider circle of the hierarchy protected abused priests and left innocent children vulnerable. And that tainted all of organized religion, not just the Catholic Church. And then there was that decade of controversy over homosexuality within Protestant mainline denominations, where people, especially young people, were appalled at the nastiness of that controversy, and for whom Christianity then came to mean bigoted, to be meanness and bigotry, and something that makes people behave badly. The 2004 elections, where evangelical Christians helped George Bush be reelected, was an example of where the religious right won a battle but lost the war because their anti-feminist, homophobic, hyper-patriotic rhetoric turned off a whole generation of young people, including young evangelicals from organized religion in general. Because of their views about women, of same-sex relationships, of the environment, of global poverty, and the legalization of marijuana, of the religious right, were so far away from the values of younger generations. And the fact is that those folks are not really making a discrimination between the religious right and organized religion in general. And then the economic recession, which began in 2007, as it did at the time of the Great Depression in the 20th century, led also to a religious recession. So nowadays, 30% of the population considers themselves spiritual but not religious. Butler Bass works with religious organizations, and she described a workshop that she led for a group of highly involved Presbyterians in New Jersey. She asked people to write quickly the words that they associated with religion, the word religion. What other words came to them? And they wrote them down quickly. Here are the words. Remember, these are people who go to church, who are active in their church. Words associated with religion, the word religion: cold, outdated, rigid, hurtful, narrow, controlling, embarrassing, mean. There are other cultural shifts that most religious congregations have just not kept up with. Did you know that at Starbucks, you have 82,000 choices for your beverage? We have a culture of choice. People expect to be able to choose. We're so well educated as consumers. 82,000 choices for your beverage. If you look on the internet, and if you look around at newspaper advertisements and the media, you can see that there are probably more choices than that for how people worship God or love their neighbor. And many, many more people have multi-religious identity, something that's been true for a long time with Unitarian Universalists is being true now all over the religious spectrum. Buddhist Mormons are not rare. And I could go on. But while people think that they can get their religious needs and spiritual needs met here a little on the internet, there a little on a meetup group, as our intern minister Emily Webb puts it so well, the internet won't bury your grandmother. The internet won't be here the way a religious community will when life's hard times come, which they inevitably must. And of course, as Butler Bass puts it, many people are just bored. They're bored with church as usual, bored with church as club, church as entertainment, or church as work. Many of my friends, she writes, faithful churchgoers for decades are dropping out because religion is dull. The purview of folks who never want to change or who always want to fight about somebody else's sex life. On Sundays, other things are more interesting. I hesitated about quoting this. I was afraid too many of you would leave right at this point. On Sundays, other things are more interesting. The New York Times, sports, shopping, Facebook, family time. Page here. Working in the garden, hiking, sipping lattes at the local coffee shop, meeting up at the dog park, getting the kids to the soccer game, or just working. With tough economic times, lots of people work on Sunday mornings, the traditional time to attend to religious obligation. So we have a whole generation where most of the people did not grow up in church or synagogue or temple. And we are no longer in a time where people go to church out of religious obligation. But people still have spiritual needs. People still have a need to answer those big questions in life. Why am I here? How do I live well? How do I love well? What does my death mean? What does it all mean? Those questions remain. And the need for community in this commodified world remains even more acute. But the style of the 50s that so many congregations are trying to recapture, or even the style of the 80s, they're not going to work anymore. Those insider church culture things are not going to work anymore. Now, Unitarian Universalism seems like the perfect church, the perfect religion for this environment. And as far as our values go and our approach to spiritual growth and religion and religious community, I think that is absolutely true. But we're not growing. We're not attracting those people, whether they don't know about us. Well, that's part of it. But Unitarian Universalist Association President Peter Morales, in a paper called Congregations and Beyond, points to surveys, vast surveys that show that there are many more people who do know about us, in fact, who claim the identity of Unitarian Universalists, who are not members of any of our congregations. This is a startling statistic. Basically, for every one adult member of any of our congregations, there are 3 people who claim Unitarian Universalist identity but don't come to church. So we're not responding that well either. Back in the 90s, back before all this changed, back in the good old days, I read an article in this church administration magazine. The advice was that if you're going to make changes in the life of your congregation as a minister, never use the word change. People hate change. You can enrich, you can supplement, you can adjust, you can improve, you can enhance. But people, especially church people, hate change. And sometimes I think that Unitarian Universalists hate change worst of all. And as I've reflected on that, I think it may be because many Unitarian Universalist congregations don't have a clear sense of mission. And therefore, the default position is don't rock the boat. Keep the current members happy, with very little attention going out to the religious needs of those people who could grow as part of a Unitarian Universalist community. Welcome is way down on the list of priorities from satisfying the current members and not rocking the boat. That's not true for our church, not true for our congregation. This is a congregation that will and has taken risks. And this is a congregation that has a very clear sense of mission. And I think the two are highly related. We are here to create community, which is what, in this commodified culture, people need more than ever. A place where we can be who we are, be accepted for ourselves, and encouraged to grow into what we can be, where we are encouraged in our ambitions for wholeness and held up in the times of trouble and pain. We're here to nurture spiritual growth, where we have groups and programs and role models that can show us how to live and can show us how to love. And we're a congregation that acts on our values to help heal the world. In the last first words, there's an article by our church president, Rose Van Oss, which is describing the strategic plan that the board is working on right now. And I have to tell you, in all my years of ministry, I've never seen a better and more comprehensive effort at looking not only within this congregation for what needs to happen in the next 3 to 5 years, but also at the larger environment of San Diego, the country, and the world. A very, very thoughtful response. I encourage you to read that article. But the old ways don't work in the way they used to. We have to be nimble and smart, and we need to be excited by the possibilities. Because First Church in the next generation is going to look different. But our mission is solid. Our mission is exactly what so many people in San Diego and this world needs. And we are grounded in that as we try different things and sometimes maybe fail. So we've done a lot of innovation. We have the generosity offering I talked about earlier. We have a bilingual ministry in the South Bay. We have religious education having a new look, where we're working closely with our parents to understand the needs of families in the second decade of the 21st century. And we have 3 different choices for services. In the South Bay, we have an intergenerational service for people of all ages, and again, translated into Spanish for those who need it. And here at Hillcrest, 2 different kinds of music, the beautiful classical music that we have at this service, and our contemporary music. Now, this is a congregation that's willing to try things and make change. I have to tell you, though, the shift to contemporary music service has been a little bit difficult. It's true that the attendance after September when we started this and before is almost exactly the same. But attendance has definitely shifted to the first service from the second. For me, that looks like an opportunity. It makes sense to me that people would come to what they're used to and what they already like. What our intention is to open up the possibility for people for whom that kind of music, the contemporary music, is where they find their spiritual sustenance. I had a choir member tell me this week that for her, some of her greatest spiritual experiences were singing in an ensemble. And for some, that's classical music, and for some, that's contemporary music. What's exciting about this particular experiment is its dynamism. It's like nothing we've ever done before. It's like nothing anyone else has ever done before. And we're learning and changing all the time to create something that's unique for us, our congregation, and our future participants. We'll be attracting people who otherwise wouldn't come. There's a lot of chaos in the world, a lot of confusion, a lot of pain. Many things are breaking down. It's an opportunity. Nobody knows exactly the way forward. Not Congress, not the president, the Pope. But we know what our values are. And we have a vision of a beloved community of all souls, a vision of love and inclusiveness, a vision of tolerance and wisdom, a vision of community, of spiritual wholeness, of selfless service. And that's something that people yearn for, all generations. We have the opportunity to start showing the world what it could be like, how people could live, how people could grow, and how people can be together. This is an exciting adventure. We don't know the way forward in every respect, but we do know who we are, what our mission is, and what it means. As Judy Chicago wrote, and then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind, and then All will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. Dear friends, we don't have to wait to live like that. We don't have to wait for that world. We can start now. May it be so.